Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 24th, 2025 meeting of the Fairfield Board of Education. Present, we have Mr. Krasnov, Mr. Lee, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Flynn, myself, Mr. Peterson, Superintendent Testani, Mrs. Maxon-Cannelli, and Mrs. Guernsey. If you'll all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation. Thank you. Moving on now, item 3 on our agenda is public comment. This is for members of the public who wish to come up and comment on items on our agenda. You have up to 3 minutes of comment time. Being none. Move on to presentations. Number 4A on our agenda, first reading of Voices in Gifted Education Research Study by Ann Joyce.
Just one.
Press the green button and it should, as long as the green light's on, you should be fine.
Okay. Good evening and thank you, everybody. James Evajancic, Chief Academic Officer. And this evening, I'm joined by Ann Joyce, who's a gifted teacher in our middle schools. She is also a doctoral student at Western Connecticut State University and has brought to the administration her request to conduct some research with students and parents. Per the board policy, we're bringing that forward to you. We do believe that it is a valuable study that she's engaged in and would like to move forward with allowing her the opportunity to interview some students. I'll turn it over to Ms. Joyce, who will give you the specifics of what she's requesting in terms of how many students, where, and what she'll be asking of them for the study. Thank you.
Okay. You can hear me? Okay. Thank you for having me. The title of my dissertation is going to be Voices in Gifted Education, Examining the Transfer of Interpersonal and Interpersonal Skills from a Pull-Out Program to Broader Academic and Social Contexts. When I say voices, I mean the voices of children and the students and their parents as well. And when I talk about the interpersonal and interpersonal skills, I'm talking about self-advocacy, goal setting, risk-taking, empathy, growth mindset, self-awareness, and so on. So I'm looking to see how those skills, or if and how those skills are developed in a program, in a gifted program, and how they transfer to students' academic and social worlds. I'm looking to do this study at 3 different schools where I do not teach, at the schools I do not teach the specific grade of students. The first one would be Fairfield Woods Middle School, grades 6 through 8. The second one would be Tomlinson Middle School, grade 8 only, because I teach the 6th and 7th grade there. And Fairfield Ludlow High School, grades 9 through 11. And again, I don't teach any of those students, although I have taught some of them in the past. I'm looking to sample 6 to 8 student-parent pairs at the middle school level, grades 6 through 8, and 6 to 8 student-parent pairs from the high school level. Like to interview the students, and I feel this is an appropriate age because I feel like they're mature enough to interpret their perspectives on the gifted programming and how it has affected them. And I want to include the high school students to see, looking ahead, like how moving forward, how have they used these skills and are they continuing to use these skills? And again, I know these skills are also practiced in other areas of their academic worlds, but we specifically focus on these in our gifted program. And so the questions that I'm going to be asking them through the interview will be all about the gifted program. In total, it's going to be 12 to 16 pairs or 24 to 32 individual. That's the potential target for me. Participation is going to be voluntary. Students can decide that they don't, to opt out at any point. If they decide they want to do it and then decide this is not for them, they could do that. Going to be looking for administrative and Board of Ed permissions. The administrators, I have given an informally told them about it, but would need permissions from them as well. Going to be obtaining parent consent for both students and the parents, and student assent. And The interviews that I'm looking to conduct will be voice recorded, and there'll be some note taking, and all that will at the end of the study be destroyed. Also, any notes that I'm working on throughout the year that I'm doing this study will be in a locked file cabinet, and I will only have access to it. The only people who will see this material will be myself and my dissertation chair. And just a final note, I don't have it on here, but obviously purpose of this study is, it's kind of timely too, because just recently we had the curriculum passed, and we've been, there's been a lot of attention on gifted education. So I'm excited about this. This is something I really would like to know, of what we're doing in the gifted program. How is it impacting our students, and is it carrying out into their social and academic worlds? And it would just be, it will help guide instruction. It'll help with any further curriculum development we do along the way.
The last thing we'll only note is the study has gone through Human Studies Council at the respective university and has already been approved by that board as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your presentation. It sounds very interesting. Do board members have any questions? Ms. Maxon-Canale?
Just a couple of questions. Obviously with the Ludlow part where we don't have gifted, are you going to be targeting ninth grade, or do you think that it's going to be valid to target a senior who's taken AP classes in the meantime about their middle school gifted experience?
The initial target was just 10th and 11th grade, because we felt, when I talked to my committee, the seniors might be just too busy to want to to get involved, and the freshmen might not be ready to. But I was open to interviewing freshmen just to see whether I include them in part of the study or not. I could include it's depending on the data I get, but I was planning on freshmen through juniors only, not seniors.
Okay, makes sense. A separate question I had though is, and I'm looking over the questions that you would be asking, how do you get the students to recognize a skill gained from the gifted versus a skill they already had going in? Some of these kids may have been strong self-advocates in the first place, and I'm not saying that they didn't then practice that skill, but they didn't gain it from the program, or some of them, and others of them outright may have gained it. So how will you be able to differentiate?
Right. So, and that's an excellent question. The probing questions I would ask, I'm looking more for anecdotal information. So if they're going to be talking to me about things that we covered in the gifted program, and I do know the curriculum well, I will know what if they're specifically talking, when we did this in gifted, that helped me, when I was a freshman in high school, do this. So I'm looking for them to tie what they learned specifically in gifted through some activity we did to what they have done in the future.
And if they can't come up with examples of their own, what do you do with those answers?
I'll jot them down, but I'm going to have to be able to sift through. I'm obviously looking for themes, of what, where they're targeting, what areas they're speaking with, but I'm going to have to be able to sift through that and know this is specifically rated to gifted, and this could be something else. Hopefully they'll be able to tell me through the interview, and that would be a probing question too. If they're discussing a skill, I could say, have you done that anywhere else in your middle school or high school experience?
Okay. And then the question I always ask, or we always ask, is can we get a report of the results?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
The only thing I do want to mention too, because I didn't know if I was anticipating that I might get this question, but because the gifted curriculum is new, and you're looking at students that have gone through the program already, what about your existing program now? And I just wanted to make a comment that the skills that I'm targeting have always been the backbone of our program. It's just now we have more time to spend with students, and we're going in and we're doing more activities. And yeah, if I did this study 5 years from now, I'd probably have even better results because the students have had more experiences in the gifted program. But the skills that I'm looking at have always been part of our program.
Thank you.
Ms. Jacobson?
Oh, sorry. Hi. Thank you so much for your overview. Couple of questions on the document actually that's in front of us that we're going to end up voting on. Thank you for clarifying it was Fairfield Ludlow High School, just because the second page, they're not page numbers, guys, so I'm sorry, but the back of the memo says Ward High School.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a typo. It
Okay.
is Ludlow, and I only chose that school because I'm in the Ludlow Middle School. the majority of my time I spend is there, and just for proximity to get to the students before or after school, because I'm obviously not going to be interrupting their school lives. So that's why I chose that. But yeah, ward in there is incorrect.
Okay, so it's
a typo.
Ludlow. Okay, thank you. And then it says grades 9 to 11. And then jumping over to the next page, under research summary, Mrs. Mexicannelli may have already addressed this, but you said 6 to 8 and 10 to 11, but the previous page says 9 to 11. So is it 9 to 11 or 10 to 11? So research summary, about 3/4 of the way down.
Yeah, that's what I had mentioned. Initially, my committee had recommended grades 10 through 11, and then there was someone who suggested maybe the ninth grader could add value to it too.
So
I
should
might-
that be 9 to 11 then? I just want to make sure we know what we're voting on.
You're voting on what's in front of you. So what went through
Okay,
Human Studies Council is 10 through 11.
Okay.
If Ms. Joyce says that, no, we've switched it before Western has approved it and it says 9 to 11, I will follow up on a memo on that, but I believe the 10 through 11 was what was
Okay.
presented to them as research.
awesome. Thank you. Again, under the performance sites, I just wanted to reconcile the ward in Ludlow, so you've already answered that in the grades 10 to 11. And then you mentioned 2 of the building principals, Mrs. Colleen Bannock and Mr. Greg Hatzis, but not for Tomlinson, so.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Anthony Formato is missing from that
Okay,
as well.
so just that. All right, 10 to 11 and 9 to 11, we've already addressed. So jumping over to, I don't know, sorry guys, there's no pages. Number 11, the research procedures data, when you're asking students the demographic questionnaire.
Yes.
You mentioned a socioeconomic status will be collected, but when you go back to the questionnaire for the demographic questions, there wasn't an socioeconomic indicator that I noted in your appendix.
Okay, that was pulled out, and we'll keep that out.
Okay, so it's not going to
Yeah,
be.
because it's really not part of the study. It was going to just be kept as just data for the side, but if it's not in there, I won't. if
Okay,
it's
so
not
the
in there, we
research
won't.
procedures data should not include the socioeconomic
Correct,
status indicator, and I assume that's the same for the parents, because you also
Correct,
had that as well. Okay,
Correct.
okay. Sorry, guys, let me just jump around. I think that was it, because I just was asking in the questionnaire about those indicators. Yeah, that was it. So no economic indicators. Okay, that was all. Those were my only questions. Thank you for
I
clarifying.
should have had you proof it before I sent it to the IRB.
No worries.
Thank
I
you
just
for
wanted to
going
make
through that.
Just wanted to make sure I knew what I was
Thank you.
considering. Thank you.
Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you very much. Just one quick question. Under number 12, the data handling, and I'm not an expert in this kind of information collecting, but it said the school site and student and parent participants will be given a pseudonym so they are not identifiable. Were there any concerns? Just, I know obviously in a larger, if we're looking at like all the 8th graders in Fairfield, that's a much larger, but gifted, it's just, were there any concerns about the subs, like how small the sample size was and keeping the anonymity? When you were, obviously this went through, but you're comfortable with all that. It was the only thing that flagged out to me. It was literally the only thing that I highlighted in the whole document.
In terms of
Keeping
Fairfield,
the, like, the pseudonym for the student, if the group number is only 12 and now we're giving anecdotal story, like, were there any
Right.
concerns about keeping the anonymity, or do you feel comfortable with the way it's structured?
no, I feel comfortable, but Fairfield won't be listed
Okay.
anywhere in
Oh,
there.
that-
Yeah,
That makes it even better.
that's, you're going to have a pseudonym for that too. So yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, this is something that we will need to approve. I will have it on our agenda for the October 14th meeting. Dr. Zavjancic, is there a chance that we could get an updated copy, at least to add for our enclosures for that meeting with the changes that were mentioned?
Sure.
Thanks. All
Thank
right,
you.
moving on to item 5 on our agenda, the consent calendar. We have some minutes and policy deletions on this. Can I have a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar? Mrs. Flynn, seconded by? I'll second it. Oh, Rob, I'm sorry. Backing up,
I totally supported you.
backing up. We'll deal with that later. Item 4B, school climate plan, presentation by Mr. Mancusi and guests.
Director of Special Education. With me tonight is Meg Tiley, our principal at Roger Ludlow Middle School, and Maureen Sullivan, our Program Director of Student Support and Mental Health Services. So you were provided two documents, which one was a PowerPoint, which is an overview of the climate. Oh, I got it. Thank you. It's different from, it's different. Yes, it's better. And then you got the climate plan, and then you got the PowerPoint, which is really an overview or a summary of the climate plan. So we're going to go through this, and then when we're done, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Okay, we all know the mission of the Fairfield Public Schools. I don't need this to read this to you. As you recall, effective July 1st, 2025, all school districts in Connecticut were required to begin implementation or to implement the new requirements of the Connecticut School Climate Policy that you adopted at your June 24th meeting, along with the Restorative Practices Policy. These are some of the information or some of the important parts or components of the climate plan that we'll briefly review tonight. These are live links. I hope you were able to open them up as you were looking. I realized tonight that the last link on this PowerPoint you may not have been able to open. So we'll look at that tonight. So with the school climate policy is the admin regs, which we will briefly review when we get to that point in the school climate policy. And then the district school climate coordinator, the school climate specialist, and the school climate committee. Within the climate policy is specific roles and responsibilities of those folks. We'll talk a little bit about the climate surveys that were adopted by the committee, as well as school climate improvement plan, training requirements, restorative practices response policy, and then Meg Tiley will talk about the challenge behavior reporting, investigation, and response processes form, which are replacing our bullying investigation forms. Okay, so just a brief overview. At the beginning of the 24-25 school year, the Fairfield Public Schools, we convened or established a new district school climate committee. It consisted of 30 members. We really had great representation on our committee. We had Katie Flynn joined us. So we had Board of Ed representation. We had several administrators on our committee, including Meg Tiley, myself, Maureen, Mary Rose Diamond was on the committee. We had several staff members from the ECC, elementary representatives, middle school representatives, high school representatives, and we had several parents on our committee. It was a very active committee. It was a nice sized committee. We were able to break down into subgroups and do work. So it was a great group of people to work with, and we look forward to our continued work this year. The committee adopted the new state model climate surveys, with the exception of we revised 2 questions on the elementary student surveys. Otherwise, we adopted parent survey and the school employee model surveys. We were also provided, the state provided some model challenging behavior reporting, investigation, and response processes form. We had a small subcommittee to review those forms, and we just made some revisions to those forms. Those forms were not legally required. They were recommended by the Social Emotional Collaborative and by CABE. So we made some revisions. We'll show you those forms, and Meg will talk about those in a little bit. We adopted the school climate improvement plan template in its totality, which Meg will speak to briefly in a few minutes. A subcommittee of the school climate committee researched and vetted various primary SEL resources and selected a new primary resource with a universal screener that Maureen will speak to. And there was student focus groups that were conducted. Maureen conducted student focus groups at all levels throughout this process. And the school climate committee will continue its work throughout the 25-26 school year, with its next meeting scheduled for October 9th. All right, the next 2 slides are the new Connecticut School Climate Standards. There's 5 standards. These are embedded within the new school climate policy that you adopted in June, so I won't read these verbatim, but it really highlights that the school community's shared vision and plan for promoting and sustaining a positive school climate that focuses on prevention, identification, and response to all challenging behaviors. You're going to hear that term a lot. Challenging behaviors, it replaces the bullying terminology. School districts adopt policies that promote a sound environment that is restorative and focused on overcoming barriers to teaching and learning. You're also going to be hearing the terminology restorative practices a lot throughout the new policy. We do have a new restorative practices policy that you also adopted at your June 24th meeting. And the climate standards also speaks to the school community creating an environment where everyone is safe, included, and supported in a restorative environment, and one in which everybody feels as if they belong. That's just the second slide of 3, 4, and 5 of the climate standards.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm going to just talk a little bit about the restorative practices. Restorative practices are evidence-based approaches that help us move from punishment to accountability and healing. The goal is to build strong, constructive relationships across the school community, ensure students take responsibility for their behavior, and support them in repairing harm. These practices are aligned with the school climate standards and are grounded in prevention, early identification, and effective responses to challenging behavior. And again, this policy was adopted back in June or July. So that's a little bit about restorative practices. And we have the next one. So this slide, we have the school climate survey. It's required every 2 years, must be completed district-wide by students, families, and staff. Families receive advance notice about the survey and have the option to opt out of the survey. In addition, the survey will be used with other data points such as attendance, discipline, our SEL data, and results from the school climate improvement plans And that will help us really build a comprehensive picture of school climate in Fairfield.
Thanks, Rob. Meg Tiley, principal at Roger Ludlow Middle School. I do find it funny that when we start talking about challenging behaviors, that they gave that role to the middle school principal. Uh, um, each of our schools will be creating a school climate improvement plan. So all 17 of our schools will create a school climate committee that is also comprised of administrators, teachers, parents, and students when and where possible. Our school climate committee is going to work in collaboration with our school improvement team and our school improvement goals around specific school climate goals. The goal of our school climate plans and school improvement teams is to create, again, that environment that is safe for all students and staff to learn and be each day. So throughout this school improvement plan, we'll be using school climate survey data and other relevant information, which I'll talk at a future slide. But we want to engage our students, staff, and community in this process. For school improvement, or excuse me, school climate improvement plans, again, each school will develop their plan. They will align with the Connecticut School Climate Standards, our school climate policy, and school climate improvement rubric. And those plans will be submitted to Rob, our school climate coordinator, on or before December 31st each school year. Additionally, there will be an electronic and written copy of the plan made available to the public and school community. A few pieces on this. Again, this is a statewide requirement, so every district must develop and implement this school climate improvement plan. Our focus is always on a positive school climate. The plan emphasizes prevention, relationships, and inclusivity rather than solely discipline. I spoke earlier about having a universal reporting system, challenging behaviors. Once again, that form is going to replace our bullying terminology to broaden our reporting and reduce that stigma. Schools will be collecting data. We're going to collect, monitor, and respond to behavior and school climate data. We will provide tiered support and strategies that align with the multi-tiered systems of support, or as we know it as the MTSS system, to meet the diverse student needs. Again, student and staff engagement. This requires involvement of teachers, students, families, and community partners. And we're always looking to continuously improve. Our plans are and will be reviewed and updated regularly for effectiveness.
Okay. This slide outlines the structure and responsibilities for school climate leadership. The superintendent or his designee serves as the district level school climate coordinator, which I think is currently Rob is our school climate coordinator for the district. While each principal appoints either themselves or a certified staff member as their school climate specialist. Together, they lead the school climate committee at the school, and that committee includes staff, students when developmentally appropriate, which I really love that we have included students in here so we can get their voice in, families and community members, and the coordinator and specialist are required to meet twice per year to review strategies for improving school climate, really with a focus on addressing challenging behavior and really using evidence-based practices like restorative approaches.
So you keep hearing the term challenging behavior, and we know the lifetime term of bullying. Just to read those definitions, challenging behavior means behavior that negatively impacts school climate and interferes or is at risk of interfering with the learning or safety of a student or the safety of a school employee. Bullying means unwanted and aggressive behavior among children in grades kindergarten through to 12 inclusive that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. Myself and the Dean of Students at Roger Ludlow Middle School last year met with Jennifer Leeper and other state reps to have this conversation around the new public act, around the challenging behavior form. It's really looking again to expand that focus beyond just bullying to challenging behavior, meaning that any conduct that negatively impacts the school climate or interferes with learning or safety of the students and staff. That shift to challenging behavior is intended to capture that wider range of problematic conduct. The term bullying, because one of the questions we asked is, how do we get rid of that term bullying? And it's one it's not one you can get rid of, but it now becomes a subset under the challenging behavior, not eliminated, but it, again, the shift in emphasis towards climate and behavior overall. So we have 3 forms created. Rob, did you say that third form, that link wasn't
No,
available?
they were.
Okay. Okay. You don't need to. I have hard copies if anyone needs to see a copy. So essentially, the challenging behavior reporting form, that's used by students, parents, guardians, school employees to report any alleged incidents of challenging behavior, which includes but is not limited to bullying. Schools are required to respond, can confirm receipt within 3 school business days, conduct assessments, and notify the reporter via response process notification form. Again, the change effectively replaces the older Safe School Climate Plan and associated bullying only protocols with that broader, more systemic approach to behavior and climate.
Okay, this next slide talks about the regulations around a specific subset of challenging behaviors where there is guidance or required steps that schools need to take regarding tiered responses, or the terminology is tiered response incidents. So this document, there's specific definitions on what you have to do and how you have to respond to certain behaviors. So that's what this document provides to schools.
All right, so this slide does reference beginning in July 2024 and continuing every school year after. Fairfield Public Schools will ensure the staff receive resources, professional development in 3 key areas: social emotional learning, school climate, and culture, including research-based interventions and restorative practices. These trainings will equip school staff with tools to strengthen relationships, improve climate, and effectively respond to challenging behaviors. And then for training and professional development, we are providing every school with resources, training to strengthen school climate, ensuring that staff have the opportunities to participate, and the efforts are supported and sustained. And then there is also mention of funding. That funding will be allocated, but with superintendent approval, so that the district can ensure that there are resources available to strengthen climate and culture.
Okay, so our next steps, as I stated, our next school climate committee meeting is October 9th in the board conference room right here to discuss with the group the soft rollout of our new primary SEL resource in grades K through 8. Chelsea, if you can open this link, please. Similar to the last version of the school climate plan in Fairfield, we, because people are familiar with that plan, we kind of modeled the format of this plan after that. So there was a suggested timeline on that. So this is what we provided here. I don't think you were able to open this link. I think this was the only one you may not have been able to open. We will make that available to you. So that is our next, work to do in the next couple of months. So that is our summary of our school climate plan. Hopefully you had a chance to look at the more detailed version of the plan. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the comprehensive backup. Questions from members of the board? Mrs. Jacobson.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation and for all the work on this. I know what we've got up is very old, so I'm happy to see this moving forward. So thank you for all your work on this. I'm just going to go in order of the presentation, the PowerPoint. So what was the two questions that were revised on the elementary survey? I mean, you don't have to tell me exactly word for word, general, over, like,
I brought that with me because I anticipated that question. So, there were two questions on the elementary survey that the, part of the question, that we had some discussion on, did the group feel that it was too sensitive or was it appropriate for the elementary school children? And it had to do with respect to, gender identity, religion, and sexual orientation. So, we shortened the question to say, I feel I am treated fairly for who I am. And we took out with respect to those things we took out. And the second question was similar. It said students in my school are treated fairly by other school students, regardless of who they are. And we eliminated the respect to their religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, race. So those were the two questions that we revised.
okay, thank you. The next page, are we telling us what the new SEL resource is, or was it left out because you're not ready to let us know what that is?
Excuse me?
The next page, primary SEL resources, and selected a new resource with a universal screener, but it's not in here what it is. So if you don't want to tell us yet, that's fine. I just was curious what it was.
No, it's called Wayfinder. It's replacing Move This World. The committee did review and had some presentations by vendors. Students also participated in viewing this, and this is what the committee
Is
selected.
this an online resource like Move This World is?
It has both online and you can print things out. So it's a comprehensive resource, and it has a universal screener.
And
With
is that
both,
different than the DESA?
yes, that would replace the DESA.
Oh, it's replacing the DESA.
It would replace the DESA.
Okay.
Yes. It compares our students to our students rather than national norms, which I think will give us much better data for our students. And it has both summative and formative assessments.
Okay, so I think that
Included.
we added to the budget because it was inadvertently left out about $40,000 for the DESA. Is there any variance in here for this?
You can speak to that, please.
There's a slight variance, but we can cover that.
As in higher?
Yeah, $10,000.
Okay. Okay. So I know that we didn't do the school climate surveys this, like during 24, 25 in the spring as we normally would do because you were all working on this part and waiting for the new survey. So when do you anticipate that being done?
End of March, beginning of April.
Oh, so
similar.
still in the spring?
Yes,
Okay. Then that would probably come to us sometime in the fall, early fall.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, the only other piece that I had was, you clarified what each form was, and I just wanted to clarify, just for the public too, if they're looking for quote, like the old bullying forms, that is now replaced by these challenging behavior reporting form.
Correct.
And then the investigation form is filled out by whom?
That's filled out by,
The school climate specialist
Who is the principal
or
or
designee.
designee?
At the middle school, it's typically the deans working in concert with the principal.
Got it. Okay. And then the response process notification form,
That's the form that when the school climate specialist completes their investigation, that would go home to the parent.
got it. People just might be looking for different words, and so just wanted to clarify that. And then, yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Mancusi, some of the links weren't working, so is there any way that we could possibly just be sent a PDF of the timeline, possibly? Or something?
The implementation
Yeah,
timeline?
the implementation
Yes.
timeline, because that didn't work for me. I wasn't able to access it.
Yeah, because we didn't.
It's okay. That's all
yeah.
right. I mean, links sometimes, rather have the PDFs anyway, because
Yeah.
links end up breaking. So, and thank you for the full plan, and for all the work that went into this and to everybody who served. So thank you very much.
Any other board questions? Mrs. Maxon-Cannelli.
And thank you for this. Just a couple of questions. Mrs. Jacobson asked several of mine. One comment you just said about the Wayfinder coming with assessments. In what capacity would we be using a summative assessment for this? I think of summative as contributing to grades, and how is that being used?
So some of it could be used if we were doing tiered interventions. So if we have a student in tier 2 or tier 3, we can use those summative assessments to track their progress.
Okay. I just think a less academic name would help there.
it
it's
would,
'cause
I know.
It's really meant entirely differently
right.
than grading.
Right.
So,
But that's what
for
they call it in Wayfinder. So that's the terminology that we
Gotcha.
were using. Yeah.
okay, couple of other questions. So you answered the question about district-wide, that it's staying in the spring. I was wondering if your committee has talked about how you can improve the rates of people participating.
We have talked about improved participation rates from parents. It's something we're going to talk more about when we get closer to administration.
Do you see this as being something that you can possibly time, especially for the elementary school, with the parent-teacher conferences and trying to make use of that? You're here, can we put you in front of a computer, by the way, kind of idea? I know we've talked about that in the past, but I don't know that we've ever pulled it off.
You know, some schools, as you know, their participation rates were a lot better than other
Yes.
schools for some reasons like you just referred to. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that.
Okay.
We
No
also did not have Parent Square when we did our last survey, and I'm hoping that that helps.
True. Okay, thank you. And then obviously important that, one of the ways that we're going to evaluate our improvement and measure success is, whatever the rating scales that come out with improvement. I'm curious if there is a way to specifically evaluate the restorative practices. Is that something your committee has talked about, or that you have tools for? I feel the questions you just mentioned as being helpful that were changed for elementary school, but, especially thinking of middle school and high school, it's a real change of practice in many ways. Again, I know we've been doing, certainly getting our toe more in the water than, this isn't just completely brand new. But how do we measure that it's working, that it's creating a more positive school climate?
Some of the ways that we can measure some progress is take a look at our disciplinary data on the number of students who are chronically absent. What I would also say, we're in the process of training all of our staff in restorative practices. That is a multi-year project. We are in, I believe, we started in 23, 24. To date, we have trained, I believe, 40 cohorts, which are up to 20 or 25 staff members each. We have 15 scheduled again this year. So that is a multi-year project.
Can I add to that? So if kids and staff don't feel safe and welcome coming to school, if they don't have that, we have nothing, right? So I can speak to the middle level, along with restorative circles that are working on repair and restoration. We are also working on circles, which could be a classroom of a get-to-know-you activity. It could be a classroom of an exit ticket. And I believe that engagement with teacher and student will build that connectedness and that feeling of safety and belonging. That's anecdotal.
And that's grouped under restorative practice.
That is a practice that we at the middle level are doing under restorative practice. But so again, I'll speak to Roger Ludlow Middle School. Last year, we took all of our sixth grade students through 3 different models of circles, starting with get to know you circles, an academic type of circle, an exit ticket, for example, and then work in restorative circles. So we want kids to understand that when we circle up, whether it's a get to know you or restorative, it's not a, oh, what are we doing? And there's, quite frankly, some warm and fuzzy to it. So again, back to kids wanting to come to school, share with one another, be with their teacher, and feel that connectedness.
Yeah, I'll have to admit, most of my interaction with it, I hadn't thought of it as that way. So thank you. This is very helpful. I'd always thought of it, especially as a response to difficult, challenging behaviors and addressing those behaviors in a non-punitive fashion and wanting to know how that changes behaviors as a result, changes the student's degree of feeling included or belonging or positive about being there. So I'm still, I don't need you to keep talking about it, but I'm still kind of curious more about hearing how this is working. But I do appreciate having my understanding of the term broadened. So thank you. Let's see if that was it for me. The only other thing I wanted to know about is that in one of the final slides, training and professional development, and that it shall allocate Fairfield Public Schools sufficient funding to satisfy the requirements of the policy. I was wondering if there's anything else you are anticipating at this time beyond the 10,000 in addition.
In terms of budget proposals?
Yes.
Yeah, I do believe there will be some discussions about other things.
That's a very vague answer, Mr. Mancusi.
Yeah.
If you feel that it is not your place to
There,
bring these up?
just in terms of the SEL resource for Wayfinder, we got a 2-year deal with them. Because the board allocated $40,000 for this year. The second year, we're gonna need to make up a little bit of that, plus the second year, so that will be asked for in the budget. The one good thing about Wayfinder, it's one cost with the resource and the universal screener. It's not 2 separate costs. So it actually is a cost saver, but we're gonna have to budget for that and any resources or supplies that accompany that.
Okay, your reaction made me think we were looking at a, multi-$100,000 bill coming our way, but
So I
it's,
think to add to that, the overall plan, and I think I've shared this in recent past, is that we'd like to start to look at how we can beef up some of our staffing at the elementary school. As we introduce these topics to our youngest students in the district, I think it's important that we have dedicated staff to maintain a consistent messaging and some instruction around this. So that will be a bigger ask when it comes to budget time. I think Mr. Mancusi was a little hesitant because we've had some preliminary conversations and really trying to flush out the need prior to the upcoming budget cycle.
thank you so much.
And to the question that was asked about increasing participation, I have some ideas around trying to really create some sort of competition, so to speak, and some incentive around getting the completion of these surveys done. Similarly to, school-wide competitions, class-wide, we can get the numbers up, maybe invest in some pizza parties, ice cream thing. Just a little friendly competition around this, I think, to bring some excitement. And as Ms. Tiley brought up, I think Parent Square will help encourage that. And if we can get the kids buy-in to encourage their parents, because maybe their class can earn something as a result of having the highest participation rate in the school. I think that's always something that works out pretty nicely.
Well, I thank you so much for that. I can't resist bringing something up that Mrs. Jacobson and Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Guernsey maybe also would know really well, is that those competitions used to be great in the elementary school for the reading competitions, and they got scrapped and my kids were devastated. So I'm all for that competition. Just wanted to remind you about that reading. Thank you.
Mrs. Guernsey?
Thank you so much for this important presentation. Really appreciate it. I just have a question around the challenging behavior reporting form because that's something that I think could be tricky. I think other board members touched on it to find, right? Because you don't necessarily know what you're looking for unless you're sitting at this table now or you're one of our educators. So what education piece do you think that you would provide for our community so they would know where to look for this form or how to understand what this terminology means? Thank you.
Yeah. So we discussed that as a committee. If you look at all of the district websites now, under links on, and it's uniform across the district, one of the links is tips, the tips piece. We were talking about linking the challenging behavior form there and then having a communication go out to parents.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much.
I just in a trial, I put it on the RLMS webpage, and it's why I ended up in the upper right-hand corner, because it was like, boom, welcome to Roger Ludlow Middle School, challenging behavior reporting form. And I said, that's just not the best look, so that's when the idea came to put it in that corner.
Understood. Thanks so much.
Mrs. Flynn.
Just a follow-up, I think that's a great point. And to Mr. Mancusi, who's so generous with his time with SEPTA and our PTA, it may just be a good thing to throw on. I think you're coming to SEPTA soon. It may just be good to throw on to talk about that community seems to be able to disseminate information really well, as well as our PTA. So just a thought and a way to get the information out again. But thank you guys. It's a great presentation.
Mrs. Jacobson.
This is probably through the chair to Mr. Testani. On our Fairfield Public Schools, there's actually a school climate on the right-hand side as you go down under the district information. I presume like all of this will replace the old items that are there, and the forms would also probably be there as well, I would assume.
Correct. And then once it's launched, we will send out something district-wide, introductory letter from myself. We're working on that, Rachel and I. And also going through the website this weekend, I did notice that there are some things that, in addition to the climate page, there are some things that need to be updated, including the reopening during COVID that's still posted. So we are slowly going to work through and update some of the things that need to come down. Rachel has been doing a great job going through the website. There's just so much that has been added over the years and nothing's come off the table for some reason. So.
Any other board member questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much for the presentation. Again, this is another voting item that will be on our agenda on the 14th. Thank you. Now that we've given the team their due, we can move on to item 5A and B, consent calendar. Can I have a motion to approve the items in the consent calendar? Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, seconded by Mr. Lee. Mrs. Flynn, you had a comment?
Just one quick note, we did have a friendly amendment for the minutes from September 9th. It was just a one-word change on page 2 that indicated to say the policy committee has reviewed instead of drafted. Yep. You good? Okay, get there. On page 2. That was changed to.
Unless there are any
Unless
objections.
there are any objections to that.
Mr. Krasnov.
I would like to make an amendment to pull out 9/3/25 special meeting minutes in light of some of the new information we've recently gotten from Svegals. I personally would like where it says on page 1, the board discussed the study and asked questions and provided feedback. I would ask the secretary to expand on that a little bit, just so when people look back, they would understand the questions that Svegals have used to increase estimates. I don't, I didn't expect it. I didn't know that this was all coming, but I would like to pull it out and have more information.
If I can, we're kind of jumping ahead in a thing that's going to be on our agenda tonight, but in fairness, that's not a thing that we discussed in that meeting. And I
The-
understand
The
that,
minutes say board discussed the study and asked questions and provided feedback, but there's no clarity to what those questions were. or
I know,
nothing.
but you said you wanted kind of expanded information about why they changed their.
No, I wanted more information about what questions were actually asked instead of just a sentence, because most of the minutes show what people asked on certain things. On this one, it doesn't. I don't mean to make more work for Ms. Flynn, but in this case, I think it's important to have that information in the minutes itself.
Ms. Flynn, do you have any comment on
As,
that?
as the secretary, I don't know what I would expand to that with what you're requesting. So unless you have an amendment, I would object to that. And I would refer to everybody, just go with the minutes as is. I don't know what I would change.
I'm just asking to pull it out so I have time to draft an amendment. That's it.
Well, if you're making a motion to pull it out, is there a second for that motion? Seeing none, we'll leave it at. Any other questions or comments on the items in the consent calendar? All right, since these involve policies, any members of the public want to comment on the policies component of these? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Mr. Lee, Mrs. Jacobson, Mrs. Flynn, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, Mr. Asa, Mrs. Guernsey. All opposed? Mr. Krasnov? That's 8-1. Thank you. 7-1. Apologies. Counting is off. All right, old business. Item 6A, approval of 2024-2025 final year transfers with the recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the 2024-2025 final year-end transfers as enclosed. Can I have a motion? Mr. Asa, seconded by Mr. Lee. And we have Mrs. Devaney is joining us remotely. If there are any questions, but this is the document that we received with the financial update at our last meeting. Mr. Krasnov.
I was wondering if there was any clarity on the utility charges. I had asked for the information and hadn't received what it actually was, the increase.
I'm still putting together the information. I did some comparison and there is some increases, but I want to give you the exact details. So I'm still gathering that information.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson.
I'll jump, I'm gonna go in reverse chronicle over from the bottom up. Capital outlay, the Chromebooks, we know what that is for. Those were unbudgeted and we're covering that cost. The capital outlay, for the various equipment replacement at schools of 109. Our entire budget for 24-25 was 85,800. So could someone, I did ask, and just, Mr. Peterson, just as a reminder, I did ask for more detail at the September 9th meeting, which we didn't get. So what was causing more than 100% increase in the expenditure there?
Those were the very large purchases that we made for the lift. And there were some music purchases and there was a dishwasher purchased for Ward, which was a safety issue, as well as the lift was a safety issue. There were some items purchased for the gym equipment. I believe there was some stair steppers and treadmills that were purchased. There were some tubas purchased.
So that didn't go into the maintenance. Those weren't the maintenance items? Okay.
No, those were new equipment items.
Okay. And then the shortfall in the utilities, I have the same question. So based on your fourth quarterly report, we had a $235,000 surplus actually in utilities. And I looked up these accounts, the 472 and the 476. So I understand that electricity went up, but there was more than enough to cover from gas and water. So the 476 is the Synergistics contract. So how much of this 289 is going to Synergistics contract?
I don't remember the exact figures. I don't have the report in front of me, but I know there was a shortfall in electricity. There was a surplus in gas, and then there was the $533,000 Synergistics contract. So those all netted to the amount of the transfer that I requested.
Right. So I had asked Mr. Peterson just a bunch of questions in January about this, and the contract was signed. Obviously, we know we did not fund that, that it was going to be self-sustaining and that there wouldn't be, any cost to us, but we're being asked to, fund it now with a shortfall. So, I have concern about that.
Well,
Uh,
I do have to say that there was overall a 10% decrease in the usage. So that, I believe, is directly a result of the synergistics contract.
Right,
Um,
but we're still
But
short.
there was an increase, right, there was an increase in the rates, which is not covered with synergistics.
Okay.
They just work on usage.
Yeah, I understand, but this number, 476, what, I'm just saying, we're covering that cost. And then what is the items for the $530,000 in maintenance? What were those items?
Most of them were the items that were listed in the summer projects from Mr. Papa George. There was paving, there was painting, there was, work on the field, which I believe was listed in the summer projects. That was the majority of it.
But wouldn't, that wouldn't cause a deficit. That would have been,
Well, this was over and above what was budgeted.
so why were we doing things that were over budget there? We didn't have a surplus, so,
Well, there was a surplus in the wage and benefit to
okay.
be
So
used, so we used, right, so we used it to fund projects.
sorry, what did you say? Painting, painting and paving, those aren't like large items. What field?
I believe it was Ward.
Ford Field.
There was
Lights,
some
no.
work on the
Lights is a capital
softball and
project.
baseball field.
No, the lights is a capital project.
Yes.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the lights. It was primarily the field work of the softball and baseball fields. I believe it was at Ward. And was the painting and the paving. There were some shade structures that were purchased. There were some shades purchased for classrooms. Again, I don't have the details just off the
There's
top of
also
my
some
head,
major
but
maintenance listed, for Burr, RLMS, Walter Fitzgerald, Dwight, FLHS, and Ward in these account numbers. What were those that weren't budgeted? What were those?
I apologize. I do not have that in front of me. I can get that information to you, what was specifically done at each of those buildings.
You don't remember any of them?
I don't off the top of my head. I don't, based off of what was budgeted and what wasn't that we did, that I would have to compare the records to see which ones were and which ones weren't. Just as Ms. Traverse said, the costs on the Ward Field that she was referring to is we did do some additional work there. After we started the project, we identified some drainage issues that were concerns, so we did add some drainage to the Ward baseball program so that the field would be drier more often and allow us to use it more often. That being said, we also identified on the softball side of that, on the other side of the field, there was some drainage issues where when it rained heavily, we had some pooling behind home plate. So we worked on cleaning that up as well. We're trying to make the fields as usable as possible.
Understood. All right, no problem. Just wanted to understand what that was for. I know what the school supplies were for. The last question I have, and this is probably, for our CFO. We had over $1 million shortage in pupil personnel services, but there isn't any money being transferred into that classification. How was the $1 million covered?
those were covered from the May transfers that Courtney Laborious asked for and were approved. The ones that were approved, I believe, on May 27th.
So these are just you're closing out the books on the September. Well,
Correct.
got it. Okay.
So these are above and beyond what was asked for and approved in the May 27th request.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Flynn?
Thank you very much. It may just be helpful for those major class, in item 6, just to get a breakout for it for the Friday packet. seems like a few members have requested it, just may be helpful, just a thought.
Mrs. Guernsey?
I had a little bit of a hard time with this because we were missing the detail and I thought we were going to be receiving it. So, I'm not sure if I'm interested in making a motion, but I'm like thinking about if we should postpone this to a time certain after which we receive the answer to these questions. Actually, I'm not really interested in making that motion, but I'm not also interested in supporting this because I don't really understand the detail.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a voting matter. Comments from the public on this topic? All right, bringing it back to the board, all in favor? Mr. Asa, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Flynn, Mr. Lee, all opposed? Mr. Krasnoff, Mrs. Jacobson, and Mrs. Guernsey. Motion passes 5-3. Thank you. And thank you very much, for Mrs. Devaney.
You're welcome.
Excuse me. Moving on to new business. 7A, approval of capital and non-recurring projects with the recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the capital and non-recurring projects in enclosure number 10. May I have a motion? Mrs. Flynn, second by Mr. Asa. Mr. Papa George, floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. These are the capital projects that we talked about last week on the waterfall. If you'd like, I can walk through each one, or I can give you the brief summary that the only thing that has changed from what we talked about at the Capitol Waterfall last week and this report now is the Dwight project was updated with a total cost project based on a new report issued from Spiegel's.
Mr. Krasnoff.
Trying to understand why we're changing numbers on something we voted on last week. Is this an amendment we have in front of us to change this number?
Well, this is a different document, but what I'll say, and I did try to communicate this to the board this week when this number came to light, and the fact that the town is likely to be using this number. I think going forward, this is the number that's in the Spiegel's report, and I think this is the number that's going to be in our debate going forward with other town bodies.
I have concerns with us putting a number forward that we didn't have a chance to talk to Spiegel's about. I understand the information we got, and I do appreciate that they updated it per some of our questions, but I don't know which questions they did update, what they didn't update. I still didn't really see more of a number for relocation that we asked for. And it says it covers relocation, but we all know in reality, it doesn't really cover all the relocation. So I have some concerns about all these numbers to begin with. We did put that number in because we wanted to honor the work that the town did, but we could have easily put $65 million in too, because that's what the number the Board of Ed had originally gotten. So I have an issue with changing numbers on the fly like this. That's just my opinion. And I would prefer to go back to the original number we had. And then, if you want to explain or it comes up during the capital planning process, for me, that makes a lot more sense. But
No, that's
it's
fine.
the will of the board of what they want to do.
I anticipated that this might be a possibility, and it's a document, and this document is certainly something that can be amended. I thought the baseline case should be the most recent number, but if you want to make that amendment, that motion for an amendment, I certainly, we can discuss that.
Well, that's why I'm kind of confused because we never really amended the numbers. So do I make an amendment or is this an amendment? That's kind of what I was asking because the number
this is-
we approved was a different number.
This is the document before us. This is a document that we're approving or not tonight. So if you want to make a change, it would be to this document.
Well, then I guess I'm making an amendment to change the number back. But part of me thinks some of the numbers shouldn't even be in this document because I don't remember numbers that weren't ours being in a document. And I know some of these numbers are not our numbers from the facilities committee. So I'm confused why numbers themselves are even in this.
If you have specific issues with specific numbers, I'm sure Mr. Papa George may be able to give us some context.
If we can go project by project. The vestibules, we had questions in facilities committee about all the vestibules and the numbers were going to be solidified a little more. We had put those in because they were a breakdown of the numbers, the total that we were asking for originally. So that's all the vestibule projects. The paving, we had supposedly gotten a quote for, but we hadn't seen any quotes. We just were told there was a quote. Trophy Point was not something that we had, Trophy Point's Figals. It wasn't our project, but we were going off their number on the Dwight project. To change it now, again, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with that. But all in, a lot of these, like this, we see, here's a project summary sheet. Like that, I like to see, that's a number from us. I have no problem having that in the one for the Woods bathroom. Because that is an actual quote we have, but the rest of them, we don't have quotes. That's just my concern. If we're gonna put numbers in these projects more or change than what's in our waterfall, I really think we should have at least discussed it in facilities before we did it.
Because do you have an amendment tonight?
My amendment is, my first amendment is to revert the Dwight number to the Dwight number approved by the board, which was 74 million, hold on.
$74,567,303.
There you go. That works. Let me just double check.
If that's a motion that you're making, do I have a second? Oh,
The motion I am making is to revert the Dwight and ECC portion back to $74,567,303. I also would like to, if we're going to give this sheet, is this coming with you tomorrow?
I'm going to bring it. I assume that everyone will have, we're not voting on that, but
Okay,
I'm
so
sure
yeah,
that
I'll make
study
that
will be
amendment for
in front
now.
of the-
We'll start with that amendment, please.
Ms. Guernsey, are you seconding that? Mr. Asa?
I will not support this amendment. I have no problem putting forth the new number. The will of the board was to put the project forward. And this is the number that is in front of us tonight that is on the town side. So that's why I would have no problem putting it forward as is. I don't think the number here is going to make a significant difference in the deliberations and discussions with town bodies. Again, I feel this board with the vote on the waterfall and the ed specs put forward the project, and this to me brings it in line with what the town is. And I would say that in the past, we have not had anything like this. So I can't compare this to previous projects because we had to get to the D&D phase and whatnot to get numbers like this. So that's why I would not support the amendment, but I would support the document moving forward.
Can I comment back on that? The meeting tomorrow was posted and they actually have our 74 million number. So they are not going off the 78 million number that is in this book.
Mrs. Flynn?
Thank you for the amendment. I'm a little conflicted. I kind of sit somewhere in the middle. I take Mr. Ace's point that I think overall we voted on the waterfall last week, and that's going to be reflective of what goes before the town bodies. Like you said, there's two different numbers already floating around. I think it's going to be much more indicative that this board supported a new construction. And to be honest with you, I think that we are all a little tangled up in this new process versus just moving through where it should be. In my opinion, this number should have been formulated by a building committee and not this table, not a facilities committee, not this board. So in my opinion, I want to do whatever it will get done to expedite this to get to the place it should have been, in my opinion, a year ago. So I'm not as stuck on the number. So that's just where I'm sitting right now.
Any other questions? Mrs. Jacobson?
Mr. Peterson, I'm going to back up a minute. Can you explain to me why a report dated September 12th did not get into my hands until September 22nd?
I did not receive it on September 12th.
I understand that you didn't. So what happened with the town capital projects working group? Why we did not get that for 10 days after it went to the town? Because obviously my point on this is We would have had it before we voted on the waterfall. So I don't understand why that report didn't go beeline into this body's inbox on the day it was dated, or the 12th, or the 13th, or the 14th, or the 15th, or the 16th, or the 17th, when we did have a committee meeting and a vote. So do you have any, did you ask like why you didn't receive it, or we didn't receive it for so long?
I don't have any insight into that. I did not have it in my hand for the
I know you
meeting
did.
on the
I
17th.
know you didn't.
So I understand your level of frustration.
Yeah,
I do, but I did not have it to distribute.
okay. I hope that comes, sorry, Mr. Peter, sorry, Mr. Tassani.
Yeah, I mean, Angelus and I spoke when the new number did finally get to us. And apparently Marissa had indicated that after here, coming before this board and some of the feedback they received, they went back and and again, we don't know exactly on what specifically, as Mr. Krasnoff said. They sharpened their pencil a little bit, looked at some things based on what happened at the meeting here. And that's what caused them to increase the number and amend the report.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Actually, it's the other scenarios that went up. If you go to our 829 and the September 12th, actually the cost on Dwight went down. To build the building, it went down. There are multiple line items that are actually lower for the Dwight based on this report. What went up is the bottom part, all of their contingencies and the 20% and all of that. What happened is that in the August 29th, there was no sharpening of the pencils. They had a mathematical error and didn't add their column properly. So based on that fact, this project to build the building is $500,000 less than the 829 report. And based on their mathematical error, it's all their contingencies. So I am frustrated that it got to us so late after the 17th. I'm also actually just frustrated that you would change a number instead of just bringing us the new information and letting us amend, right, than what we already voted. Just different philosophy. The board already voted, put that number in here and bring us the new information and let us increase it if that was the will of the board versus amending back to what we already voted on. So I am frustrated with that as well. As Mr. Krasnoff stated, the backup for tomorrow night is up, and it is not the $76 million. It is the $74 million that we voted on. So that would be consistent with what is being presented tomorrow evening. Despite everyone's feelings, this number here, the reason why I am not going to support this increase is because unless Mr. Peterson, you've sat with these estimates and or maybe Mr. Lee has some insight for me. Can you please explain to me why almost 40% of this project has nothing to do with building the building, which is far more than Silver Petroselli's last year? I have $12.7 million in this new estimate that has no breakdown, doesn't tell me what it's for. It's just called the soft cost numbers that the A&E company, Svigal, I presume that is, asked the estimator to just tack on across all the scenarios, Mona Terrace, Barberry, doesn't matter, all of them. Do you have any idea what's in that 20%?
The short answer is no. The longer answer is, that would take I would not be comfortable answering that without referring back to Svigal's.
Right. So in the estimators, right, in all the actual appendices, right, it just says a request made by A&E to tack on 20%. I don't know what that's for. Sorry, Mr. Lee, I'm still talking and I'll be done in a minute. You also included in our book these estimates, but there's no estimates for any of the other projects in here. So can I'm just curious as to your thinking is why you would put estimates that don't belong to us in this book? Because I mean, are you asking, so I guess that's to you. Let me just, Mr. Pop George, can you answer that, why you would put that in here?
We put those estimates in the book because unlike the other reports, we didn't build that final number. It was given to us from a report. So we wanted to be able to provide the backup from where it came from. As you said, we plugged the number into that, whereas you get the breakdown on the other projects because we build those numbers out.
Okay. I was gonna ask Mr. Peterson a follow-up number.
Wait, are we still on the amendment? Shouldn't we be voting amendment? before
I
we go
am,
on
I'm
to-
asking, well, the amendment's on the table.
Mrs. Jacobson has the floor, but Mr. Lee's point is taken that the motion that's before us is the amendment.
Right, and I'm talking to the amendment on why I'm thinking about, I know that the amendment was made at it before we actually had a conversation, because I'm interested in hearing other board members' thoughts on this. And I hear Mr. Ace's point as well. The reason why I am leaning towards in favor of this is because I already voted on a number. I don't understand these updated numbers, especially since the construction cost is actually lower than what we had before. We're including an estimate in here of which I can't defend, right? I have no idea what these numbers are. There's no breakdown of these numbers in here, and it's included in our booklet. So I don't even actually like that it's in here. I could see what you're saying is including it as like an appendix. So Mr. Peterson, by voting on this tonight here, are you asking this board to affirm their vote for those estimates? Because I can't do that. Because it's in the booklet.
I think what we're doing with this vote in general tonight is forwarding a project list with our best estimates
Okay.
gathered from various sources and being plugged into the town's bonding plan so that they can move forward.
Okay, so we're not voting on the fact that I think that that this estimate from that company is accurate.
I don't think that that is what you're agreeing to.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. I'm going to support it because I think that this project actually doesn't belong to us, right? You've told us that many times. This is a Board of Selectmen town project. It's not our project. We didn't have anything to do with this. There were no meetings that any of us attended except for you and Mr. Lee. And I have serious questions that I think that the other town boards should actually dig into on their report because it's theirs, right? They should be asking what that 20% is for. They should be asking about some of the numbers that are in here. So considering that that estimate is in here, which I wish it wasn't, I'm going to support to go lower because I think that the town boards have some questions to do on what is extraordinarily high percentage of non-construction costs compared to what we got last year. So that's my feeling on that. And ultimately, I hear Mr. Ace's point because we're not going to decide this number anyway, right? Like ultimately, it's going to be the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the RTM that plug in whatever bonding authorization they're willing to fund. But on the principle of the matter, because I can't defend those estimates, I'm uncomfortable increasing it. And that's just my rationale at this point, but it's not like I wouldn't support the project otherwise. I'm just telling you that because if I can't defend those numbers, I'm hard inclined to support them. Thank you so much.
Mr. Lee,
I think when you're talking about this project, that's what it is. It's a bunch of numbers. And like Mrs. Flynn has said before, and Ms. Hayes in the past, you have a building committee that will get you those numbers on the soft costs. You don't know what the soft cost is yet, but you know it potentially could cost $76 million. When the building committee goes through its normal process of setting everything up, then you can ask the questions, where's this cost coming from? And then when it gets to DD stage, you'll see everything broken up from even how much the furniture in the school is going to be. So right now you just have a number. It needs to get approved. Then then the building committee, which has been selected, will then start their process. And then a year from now, you'll have everything marked out.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Thank you for this amendment. I think that just based on the fact that the town is using the $74 million, I mean, that's what I'm comfortable with. I was surprised that the chair took the privilege of changing that number. I don't totally understand it. But I mean, I also agree with our other board members. I mean, these are like in some ways placeholders. So does it matter? Yeah, it kind of does. I feel like it should match the town's number. So I'll support that amendment, and that's where I'm comfortable. Thanks.
Mr. Racer?
Yeah, I just want to make one point. And to Mrs. Jacobson, you went on quite a bit about you being able to defend the numbers and you and the committee. I just want to remind, in the 8 years that we've been on the board, we've had multiple major renovation and addition projects come before us. And we have never discussed defending the detail and whatnot and the weeds that you're getting in now. We have approved projects knowingly looking back based on numbers that should have probably been more in depth. And that's not how we did it. We did it based on square footage and projection numbers, and then we would put it forward and look at Mill Hill. The Board of Finance changed that project based on the funding, right? So I just want to caution us on getting too deep into the weeds. You want to go back to the other number, now knowing that the town has posted that number, I was unaware of that, I apologize. I thought they were going with this new number based on the fact that it's their report. But you know, I think we need to move this process along tonight and get this going forward and get these projects moved forward and not dwell too much on this, because at the end of the day, the other town bodies are going to do that and they're going to come up with a number that has probably nothing to do with what we've discussed. So, and it is clear that this board has put forth this project, and whether it's 74 or 76,
get it.
it's going to come to a number. They're either going to support it or they're not. And then, as Mr. Lee said, the building committee is going to get the final number. And that's what the town is going to bond.
Can I just respond?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Easter. I understand. And when I say defend, by putting those estimates in here, I can't, right? I can't put, that's why I wanted to clarify with Mr. Peterson. You're not asking me to vote on those estimates, right? Because it's not ours. So that, when I say that, I wasn't talking about defending the project. I'm talking about what was put in this booklet that isn't ours.
Okay.
So
And I don't think we will be
Right.
defending that.
Okay, I just
think
wanna
this is
make
the
it clear
town's document.
tomorrow, right, that's the case. At least that's my sentiment.
Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple reactions, and I'm really torn. This has been a really helpful discussion for me. But a couple of things. At this point in time, what is considered the most accurate estimate? Is it the 76 million is considered from the experts we paid $1 million to, slightly under? Is this considered the most accurate number? Or if aspects of it seem wrong, then I mean, I would like to be accurate. That's all I care about. And the fact that something was voted on in a waterfall, I genuinely could not care less about, because the thing we always say about our waterfall, living document, changed as we get new information. So the fact that we got new information, need to change a number, that to me is not a relevant point. We change the waterfall all the time. I just want to put forward a document for the Board of Finance, for the other town bodies to consider, which we would say is the most accurate. And so that's my broad question. I don't know, Mr. Peterson, if you feel comfortable answering that, or?
Really, the only information that the only answer that I can give is the most up-to-date version of the report has the $76 million number in it.
So then my response is I would not be in favor of the amendment, because, and I would have no problem with people contacting, the Board of Finance saying, yes, but, and I don't mind, because I also think it's been incredibly helpful for the experienced building committee people to remind us that it is a bit of a placeholder to a certain degree, but I want you, when you are speaking to the Board of Finance, to be able to say, the experts we have paid have given us this as the most up-to-date number. I appreciate the point that it doesn't match the number currently that the town is looking at, but if this is what's most accurate, I don't see how you can defend a number knowing it's not considered accurate by the experts.
I'll just say at this point that I think no matter what vote we take on this amendment, I can defend it before the building, the capital planning summit tomorrow night, either by saying the board was most comfortable with the number that we had discussed in detail and voted out on our waterfall, or that we didn't want to come to you knowing that there's a higher number out there, not including that. I think either one of those is defensible. I'm kind of agnostic about this, frankly. I'm more interested in getting this booklet before the Board of Finance. Mrs. Flynn, I think.
You kind of covered it. I think just to the chair, my main concern, I won't restate my argument again, is how we are going to reconcile this to the Board of Finance tomorrow. So and we keep saying that we, like the semantics of it I harp on them a touch, because the Board of Finance paid for it. The Board of Finance knew the expectations of what they were getting from the working group. And I also want them to be able to discern what that is when they are looking at these documents. So it's a little bit of semantics. I agree with you. I just want to make sure that tomorrow the Board of Finance doesn't say, hey, I got my backup and my backup says $74 million and your backup says 76. Where are you, like, I think it was just a little startling to see it in this. When I saw their backup versus this, a lot of us check, and it was just a little, I'm still on the fence. I don't know what to do.
Mr. Lee.
Coming from the Mill Hill project and being on that building committee and going in front of the Board of Finance and doing all that work and then getting cut back, the experience I would have say is, if we had this report that came from the company that the town hired and they made a last minute change based on information on our last meeting, go with the higher number. Because you know what's gonna happen? The building committee is gonna get their hands on it. And if they say, oh, it's 74, and it's actually 75 million, because that's what the building committee said, the next board's gonna be like, well, you had that information, how come it wasn't presented to us? Go high, let the building committee do its job, and then come back with actual numbers that you can break down and have a discussion over. Because we're not there yet. We want a new building, we want this, but the other boards can control that. Right? So go in with the higher number, which is what the company that the town hired said. Because you don't want to hide anything. We're not holding anything back. Do it and let the building committee take its next step, would be my opinion.
Oh, Mr. Krasnov has had his hand up for a while.
The whole reason for the amendment was, one, to line it up with the number that we know and that we ask questions on. To get a new number and not be able to ask questions, it's not our report. We can't pick up the phone and call them. We can't call them in and ask questions. We really have no direct access besides maybe through some people on our board. And I don't feel that the answers I got from Mr. Peterson or Mr. Lee satisfy why the increase was done and why some of these numbers are the way they are. So at this point, I'm only comfortable with the numbers that I've asked questions on. And I think we are not doing our job if we put a number forward that we don't necessarily know what that number is. Now, it may be the right number, and ultimately the town may decide that's the right number, or the building committee may decide. But I just don't feel it's up to us to put that number out there without having some kind of explanation of what number we are throwing out there. It just sets us up and sets the Board of Finance for a lot of questions.
Many of us have made comments. Mr. Papa George, do you have any take on this?
I just wanted to share that I know the backup for the tomorrow night's meeting is online and it does have the 74. However, that being said, and I won't speak for the town, but I did meet with the finance department at the town today, and they are prepared to talk about the $76 million number. So they're aware of it now as well. There was some delay, I think, getting that number to them as well. That's why it didn't make it to their backup, but they are prepared to talk about it.
Try to keep comments to the minimum, and I think it's almost ready to move on. Mr.
We
Asa,
can do the amendment.
Can I call the question?
any objection to voting at this point?
On the amendment only.
On the amendment only, correct. All right, I'll put it out to the public. Any comments from the public? Name and address for the record.
Hi, Lauren Efren, 241 Burr Street. This whole process has been very confusing to follow along. I feel like I've really been thrown for a loop, and I'm a pretty invested member of the public at this point. I don't understand why things have, it looks sloppy. It really looks sloppy. Just blanket statement, you are going to defend this number tomorrow to the Board of Finance, which all their backup right now says 74 million, regardless of what Mr. Papa George just shared with us. I understand it being a living document of the waterfall, yada, yada, yada. It still looks sloppy, and they are going to pick it apart, just like they did last year when you guys had voted and approved 65 million. I mean, they were throwing things out like the ledge is everywhere, and there's, you know, we already gave so much money for the HVAC and the roofs. I mean, these are not gentle, you know, soft estimate cost, right? It's $2 million. That's a lot of money. That's a big jump from what they knew today to what they're going to find out tomorrow. I am not interested in anything that is going to further delay this project. I'm only interested in you guys coming together, picking a number, sticking with it, and I'm all for more money, by the way, because I would like to see as much money as possible being thrown into this project so it's done correctly, as it should have been a year ago. But now we're delayed. And any further delay is only going to hinder this project moving forward. And I don't think that's in the best interest of the students or staff of any school, but especially Dwight. Thank you.
All right, any more comments from board members on the amendment? On the amendment to revert the Dwight number in the capital projects booklet to $74,567,303. All in favor of the amendment? Mr. Krasnoff, Mrs. Jacobson, Mr. Asa, Mrs. Guernsey, Mr. Peterson. Oh, and Mrs. Flynn. All opposed? Mr. Lee and Mrs. Maxon-Canale. Thank you. I'll just say, again, I feel confident defending this either way. Yeah, I believe, especially given what Mr. Papageorge has just said, that the higher number will get quoted. I also agree with Mr. Lee that ultimately it's going to be a building committee thing.
Back to the main.
Back to the main motion. Are there any comments on the main motion, Mrs. Jacobson?
So now that we're back to the 74, should those, I can't, what is the name of the company? I'm sorry, should that estimate come out?
Svigals.
Should that come out? No, not Svigals. The people who did the estimates. What's it called? Trophy Point? Okay. Should that come out and be included as an appendix? Because now that doesn't match what we just did. I don't like it being in there to begin with. Like, it can be a part of the booklet in the back as an appendix. Rather, you know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't match now. I'm asking for your editing thoughts on that, Mr. Peterson.
I get it.
Well, it's
I mean,
inconsistent, right?
yeah, I'd be open to it, and I'd be open to an amendment to remove them.
Would you prefer it be removed and added as an appendix or?
I'm not troubled by their inclusion,
Oh, okay.
but
Doesn't
again,
match.
I get that. I'm really interested in moving forward this request to the town. I
Okay,
mean,
so you don't
that's
have
my
other way.
primary. I don't think it's going to hold us to anything. I think that we're not going to be able to have a discussion without the updated Svigals number as part of it.
I get it. So, based on that number, the project description actually needs to be changed because that number is contained in several points, Mr. Papageorge. So just, for that.
Yep.
I'm curious to think what other people think about the estimate and whether or not they think it should be removed since it doesn't match. Because I'm happy to take that out as well. Does anyone else have feelings on this strongly other than me?
Mr. Asa?
I don't know, would it be possible if it were to be left in, just to put a footnote or some kind of note in there as a part of the narrative of what happened tonight and why it differs, just a
On the
sentence?
top of the turning point?
Yeah, just a
The
sentence or
Trophy
two.
point, sorry.
Yeah, and we could just charge Mr. Papageorge to do that. I don't think we need to vote on it.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to be clear and, there's
Well,
like
are there-
52 other people who are going to vote on this, so I just want to,
That would be my answer to your question about feedback from board members.
thank you.
I think if Mr. Papageorge is open to that option, I think and if there are any other thoughts on that, is it Mrs. Maxon-Canale?
I think both should go in.
So that's where, again, I'd be fine with a footnote, but the point is it's on page 48 and on page 52,
Yeah.
which is why I was not comfortable with changing the number. And again, all I cared about is accuracy. That's all to the best of our ability that we can be. But we have to have pages 48 to 51 because that's standard template for this booklet.
Mhm.
So I don't know how they wouldn't want those accompanying pages. And again, I'm not trying to advocate for putting the number back because I lost that vote. That's fine. I'm just uncomfortable with what can you take out. I wouldn't be comfortable just putting it back to 74, knowing that we have all these accompanying pages, which are going to add up to the $76 million number. So I'm really unclear on how to do that.
I'm foreseeing the discussion tomorrow night. Coming around to this point, we're not invalidating any documents. I mean, if they ask at some point, well, can you give us a more detailed breakdown of the $76 million number? Then we have that. Yeah, and the rationale for putting the $74 million number into this book is, I think, pretty clear, and just based on, you know, the lateness, tardiness with which we got the information. I think everyone has the right to view this kind of differently in terms of priority. Again, I'm just trying to think about my conversations tomorrow night before the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen, and I don't see it as a huge issue, especially if we clarify with some kind of notation that this relates to a different number. Mr. Asa.
Yeah, just to this, on page 52, it says published 7/11 revision 9/11. I would not be opposed to adding a line in there provided to the board with the date that we got it. And that could further, you know, go into the discussion. So just adding a fifth little line in the upper right-hand corner, date provided to BOE, and then put the date that we got it. And then if anything comes up, you can simply reference just as you just did.
Mr. Krasnov?
It also appears most of the changes are to the bottom part. So I don't know if we want to make a note to that point. It's really not in the construction cost, the direct costs. Most of the changes really happened on the bottom part of this. So, you know, the hazardous material didn't change, demo didn't change, like none of those numbers seem to have changed. It's really just all of a sudden there's higher anticipated soft costs. And that was kind of my confusion because I had asked about the soft costs in a renovation versus a new build. Just from my expertise, a renovation typically has much higher soft costs, especially in an older building. Why they were the exact same percentages across the board, I had some concerns. I thought they were going to go back and revisit that and possibly increase the soft costs on the renovation or decrease the soft costs on the new build, but it seems like they just increased it. So I don't understand it, and that's why I would have liked to ask questions and understand the rationale behind it.
That's fair. I don't see that happening, frankly. Mrs. Jacobson.
Sorry, and I don't, maybe you don't know, Mr. Peterson. Is Fagals presenting to the other boards who actually approved this $1 million?
They did.
The Board of Finance?
They didn't report to Board of Finance. They reported to Board of Selectmen.
Very, very brief.
Correct. Correct. But with the understanding that our presentation was going to be more in depth, and obviously we had the first selectman here and invited the
So
other.
do you know if they're going in front of Board of Finance?
Vigals?
Yeah.
I haven't heard. I don't think so.
Okay.
Mrs. Guernsey?
I was just going to say, I think that the board member suggestions about adding the date received and an asterisk with some footnotes or whatever would be helpful, not only for your presentation, which it sounds like you have control of, but really as a document that exists in our archives so it can tell that story to the other, other members that aren't a part of that conversation. Thank you.
Any other thoughts on the document itself as amended? Mrs. Jacobson?
No, Mr. Patrick, please.
No, I just, real quick, just so I'm clear myself, we are not presenting this book tomorrow night to the.
Right.
This is for, the reason we asked for this to be voted on tonight is we are trying to expedite this project timeline. And in order to do that, we are going to ask to be on the Board of Selectmen meeting next week and then followed by Board of Finance. And by following that timeline, it puts us in final approval just before the Thanksgiving break. That being said, to clarify, I am presenting the waterfall chart or the waterfall project chart as voted on and approved by this board. So it will have the 74. These pages won't be presented tomorrow night by us. I mean, I don't know what they have this report. This was just to back up the number for that presentation to Board of Selectmen, then moving to Board of Finance and to RTM. My hope and goal is that by the time we get past the Board of Selectmen, the building committee, which is established now, will have a chair, we'll have an orientation meeting and an organizational meeting, and we'll have a chair that will be able to attend those meetings and also talk through any thoughts that they have moving forwards on this.
Thanks for that clarification. Just to be specific, the RTM is voting on the composition of the building
Yep.
committee on the 29th, on Monday.
Yes, Monday, I apologize.
Great.
So,
Ms.
Sorry-
Jacobson.
Sorry. Thank you for the clarifications. And I'm okay with that, knowing that the Board of Selectmen and or Board of Finance can increase if they want to.
Yep.
So if they're more comfortable with a higher number, they can add more money to the project. Of course, they can always do less money to the project too, but if they want to increase it to this new number, then that is up to both of those parties to do so, right? They are free to do so. I have other comments, but it's going to be after the vote, so thank you. After the vote, yeah.
Any other comments on the document as amended? Seeing none, out to the public. Seeing no public comment, back to the board. Any further board comments? All in favor of the capital and capital non-recurring projects booklet as amended? That vote is unanimous. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Ms. Jacobson, you
Thank you.
said you had additional questions, comments?
Just on this topic, if you will, and I guess this is probably important for Mr. Peterson, I know that tomorrow, you're going to be carrying a heavy load for this district in terms of the number that we are asking for things for our schools this year. And I just hope that, some of the frustration that many of us has felt can be expressed in terms of how this process has happened. Things like getting something on the 22nd and just the way that this has gone down. And I know that you appreciate that and understand that, and have lived it for the last 11 months. So I can't speak for anyone else here other than to say, it's been a very, not smooth, in my opinion, very confusing and in many regards, in my opinion, not well done. So, and that's not to the contractors or anything, but, my frustration with this is profound with how the working group, no offense to you gentlemen, took place to this board and to our community. So I hope that some of those comments can be shared, whether you agree with them or not, that this has been frustrating.
I'll add here that I have not been shy, and other people who were in the working group with me will confirm this, about saying that this was not what the board had selected to do. Despite that, I did make an effort to make sure that the board was heard in those meetings. We were invited by the first selectman, and I think that was, it was a bumpy start to getting us into those meetings, but we got into those meetings. We were participating. I think that the consultants listened to us, and I think it was also an opportunity to get the ear of other town officials. But through the summer, and I know you know this because of the facilities committee schedule, not having any kind of firm target was frustrating. I was very glad that they came here and presented and answered our questions. But putting that together on kind of a shoestring level of notice was challenging from my standpoint, and I know it's challenging for everybody at this table. And I really want to say that I appreciate everyone's forbearance with how this has been, has taken place over the last 11 months, because it's been unusual. It's been unprecedented. I am glad we have reached a point where I think we have a consensus of the board about how we believe we should move forward with our capital projects for the next several years. And that's the case that I'm going to make the primary case that I want to make tomorrow, is that this is what the board has asked for. This is what the board believes is needed for the district, for the children of Fairfield. And if there's an opportunity to say that this was and odd and frustrating, I will try to do that to the degree I can. I don't want to alienate anybody, but I have not been shy about saying that at this table and in the working group meetings. Mr. Krasnov.
I want to thank you for that and for the work that you tried to do with this working group. I'm sure it wasn't easy. Maybe you can also reiterate it's kind of a learning lesson too, going forward, of all the issues we had as a board trying to wrap our heads around it. Not to point fingers at anyone, and maybe we tried something different, but to not involve the entire board in this conversation for 11 months and then throw it back at us and give us a very short time frame to wrap our heads around everything may not have been the the best approach. So maybe we can use it as a learning example going forward that maybe try a combination of things or be a little bit more transparent with at least the board through the process. Thank you.
I think I can guarantee that everybody attached to this has learned from the process. With that, moving on to item 7B, first reading of policies. We have 4 policies tonight. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly.
Thank you. I mean, if you look them over, I don't think there's a whole lot that's controversial. Most of this is, I think, actually all of them, are they? Well, 3 of them are the 2004, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions on the first read policies? Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, how many more batches do we have?
We're getting there. We're
I
getting
know.
there. I think we can get it done in 2 batches. I've been wrong before.
I'll just say if anyone has any questions between now and October 14th, send them to the chair of our policy committee. Otherwise, I think we're ready to move on. All right, consideration and possible action on special media agenda bylaw amendment. This belongs to Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to start with, I'm going to be pulling this, but I do want to give you my rationale. There are a few edits on here that were brought to my attention by Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly. It's not as clean as I would like it, especially for a bylaw amendment, but I'm going to give you my rationale just so next time we can have a first read. There's no real rush for this, but in the building of special agendas with the chair and in leadership, it's become a bit of a barrier in terms of how our bylaws are written, that public comment is not explicitly stated inside of our agenda area. I did not think it was appropriate to plop it in there. I do think in consulting with Mr. Peterson and past chairs that flexibility for special meetings is really important. Underneath that title, we do things like tours and all sorts of things that are special. So I think leaving that may was very important versus a shall, but I messed up a little bit in terms of where it was placed. So I want to make sure it's cleaner. So I will be pulling it, but I did want to give everybody the chance to ask some questions or indicate their support or not, so I know whether to bring it back. Thank you, guys.
Ms. Guernsey.
Thank you to Mrs. Flynn for this bylaw. I think that I look forward to receiving it at the next meeting and supporting it. Thank you.
Ms. Maxon-Kennelly.
Yeah, thank you. And I too will be supporting it. And I think just so that the public understands why this is a big deal is that right now, whoever is the chair does not have the discretion to add public comment on the agenda prior to the meeting happening. It's not allowed. So therefore, any public looking online an agenda will always be under the perception that public comment isn't happening. So then we get the emails. Will we be able to comment or not? And this board has never resisted adding it, but now it can just be added ahead of time and it'll be a much cleaner process. So thank you, Mrs. Flynn, for bringing this forward.
And
Next
just,
time.
I'll just add, I mean, the context in which this came up was the meeting that we had on the 17th about our waterfall, which I think we were very interested in hearing from the public about. And I did confirm to board members before that meeting that I would be seeking unanimous consent to add it to the agenda, which we can do once we're in the meeting, but it's not an announcement that people will read beforehand. So I also will be supporting this. I'm looking forward to whatever the final form of it is, but I think it's a worthy inclusion.
Thank you all, and excuse my first go at a bylaw. I'll try again next time. Thank you, guys.
Moving on, item 8, superintendent's report.
Thank you. Just a couple of items I'd like to highlight. The Mill River Wetland Committee and Fairfield Public Schools unveiled a recreated groundwater unit model at Perry's Middle Ponds for the River Lab curriculum. Stratfield fifth graders experienced hands-on learning about the water cycle and natural space's role in the community. A big thank you to Fairfield Ward High School's Luke Allen, the tech ed teacher, and 2 of his former students, Logan Fick and Hudson Stocker, for reproducing the model. I think I sent everyone the coverage from the many news outlets that participated. I think it was a great day. And again, Luke Allen does an amazing job. If you haven't been over to the end of the year sale that he sells, they sell a lot of the things that the students created over at Ward. I encourage you to go over and I'll make that announcement as we get closer to the end of the year and the date is set. takes place on a Saturday. I'm also proud to announce that 5 of our outstanding students have been named semifinalists in the 71st Annual National Merit Scholarship Program. This is a huge honor. From Fairfield Ludlow High School, we have 3 students, Nikisha Desai, Nian Han Kwok, and Caroline Louie. And we have 2 from Fairfield Ward High School. Congratulations to Anishka Sinha and Ansel Sinha, twins. These academically talented seniors are among 16,000 semifinalists nationwide, and they'll now compete for nearly 7,000 national merit scholarships worth over $26 million. We couldn't be prouder of their achievements. Just want to also mention recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month, which began September 15th and runs through October 15th. This month, we celebrate the cultures, traditions, and contributions of Americans tracing their ancestry to Spain, Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Spanish-speaking nations of the Caribbean. Big congratulations to Fairfield Ward senior and golf team member Paige McKenna, who was selected as one of just 8 students nationwide to participate in the Pure Insurance Golf Championship. It'll be held at Pebble Beach Golf Links in Pebble Beach. During the week-long tournament, Paige will be paired with golf legend Stuart Appleby for mentorship as she competes for the Pro Junior title. Sorry, Mr. Lee, you're not included in that.
I will chaperone her if needed and be a representative of BOE.
Wait in line, there's probably a few
That
people
is-
ahead of you.
That is awesome.
Yes, it is. I really want to acknowledge senior varsity volleyball captain Sophia Solano from Fairfield Ludlow High School. This has nothing to do with her accomplishments on the volleyball court. She is doing her clinical hours as an EMT student for St. Vincent's Emergency Department. When she recognized that a patient was choking, she quickly obtained help from staff to clear the patient's path airway and ultimately saved the patient's life. She was awarded a certificate of excellence from St. Vincent's Hospital, and she is the first EMT student to ever receive this prestigious award. So great jobs by Sophia, and I'm sure everyone is proud for jumping into action and thinking of others. And last but not least, the Department of Transportation visited McKinley School with First Select Woman Christine Vitale, members of the police department, and parents to observe student drop-off and assess safety improvements. They walked the area to note concerns with sidewalks, traffic flow, and signals. The Department of Transportation will now create a report with safety recommendations to the town. These efforts build on the town's ongoing complete streets work that's been done over the last couple of years. So looking forward to getting that report. We'll share that with the board as well. So you're aware of some of the safety concerns that were found and the recommendations the Department of Transportation has for addressing those concerns. Thank you.
Board questions or comments? I love getting reminders about how awesome our students are. It never ceases to amaze me.
The future is bright, I can tell you that.
All right, item 10 or item 9, committee liaison reports. Mrs. Flynn.
PTA Council had a great first meeting last week. They are still rolling with their new meeting structures. So just a notice to the public that their next meeting will be on October 15th. That will be a roundtable meeting. So that is a collaborative meeting where members are encouraged to share ideas, no agenda, a little bit more free flowing. And then the next general meeting of the PTA Council will be on November 12th. Thank you.
Mr. Krasnov?
Just a brief CES update. All the rests have gotten together and been in talks with the governor and sent letters to the governor to try to reinstate some funding that was taken away from the rests. So just anyone who's not aware and has any questions, I can send you some info about some of the letters they're sending to the governor.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Very excited to share that the curriculum committee will be meeting a special meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the superintendent's conference room. We're going to be talking about the social studies curriculum and textbooks and also math resources and our bylaws. Thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson?
I just wanted to let everyone know that a couple weeks ago, the commissioner held an informational forum that's available on CTN. If anyone's interested on just what's going on with the federal budget in terms of our education funding, it's really, really informative. CABE, CAPS, CIRC, School Finance Project, we're all kind of the speakers. So if you, but the big takeaway is that October 1, the states are expecting a large tranche of federal funding, and with the, not having everything reconciled right now, it's concerned. So I am keeping watch on it. I'm sure Mr. Testani and everyone is as well. But that's a very short time frame away. So it is, hopefully everything works out by the 30th, but if not, just wanted to put it on everyone's radar that the state and everyone is keeping an eye on that. Thank you.
Anyone else? We've talked about most of my things. Townwide capital planning workshop tomorrow, 7:30 in this room. RTM vote for the Dwight Building Committee on Monday, 29th of September. That meeting begins at 8. Last week, we presented the fiscal year 25 year end to the Board of Finance, and Terry was baptized by fire. Actually, it's very calm. That went smoothly. Finance Committee next meets on the 8th of October. Special Project Standing Building Committee next meets on Monday, the 29th. Moving on, open board comment. Ms. Guernsey.
Sorry. I know that this hasn't been in our agenda, and I don't want to speak to this topic of the cell phone policy, but I just wanted to make a request in public that at our next meeting, because it's going to be taking place after the implementation of this policy, if pouches could be made available to board members with the locking device so we can see what our students are being provided with and what they're using, and have the opportunity to model the kind of behavior that we're expecting of them. Thank you.
Mr. Sunday, do you think that might be possible?
Sure. As Mrs. Guernsey's mentioned, October 6th is right around the corner. In preparation, the high schools have been meeting with having class meetings. Both high schools did have virtual meetings with parents last week, both high school principals, to help answer any questions. I know that there was some increased attendance than compared to a normal PTA meeting. I believe Dr. Hatz has mentioned they had about 70 people on. For the Ludlow one, I did not get a participation rate from Mr. Cavanna, but they did help answer some questions. And, we're excited to roll out. We're ready to go, and looking forward to the positive impact this will have on our students as we navigate the rest of the school year.
Thank you. Any other open board comment? Mr. Krasnov?
I just want to say Shana Tova to our Jewish community out there. Happy New Year.
Anyone else? Public comment? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Asa, seconded by Mrs. Guernsey. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody.